Everyone, and welcome to Unit 11, which is actually our last official unit other than human growth and development. So, this unit is all about us as humans and the impact that we have on Earth. Okay, so this unit is going to take us right up to the week before the last week of school. So, hopefully, you learn a lot of good and useful information in this unit. So, our first kind of chapter that we are going to be talking about is conserving land and soil, which is really, really important on our planet. Okay, and hopefully by the end, you'll understand why. So, this is part one of that. And so, the essential question that we're trying to answer today is how do people use land? Right? It's a pretty straightforward question. So, some ways might be popping into your head right now, and that's good. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk about those. Okay. So whether you live in a big city, a suburbs, or in a rural environment, okay, people depend on the Earth's ecosystems for what we call goods and services. Okay. So the goods would be things like air, land, water. These are what we call natural resources. Okay. And you probably heard this term before, natural resources. So, natural resources are basically anything that occurs naturally in the environment, and it's something that's used by people, right? It's a resource. That means it's being used. Natural means, we didn't make it as humans, okay? It occurs naturally on our planet. And then we also have the services, right? So the services would be things like pollination, right? Nutrient cycling. These are really, really important services that the planet provides that we cannot perform on our own, okay? So goods and services are what we know as ecosystem services, okay? So the land, which is what we're talking about in this lesson, the land in and of itself is an ecosystem service because it has goods and it provides services for us as humans. Okay? So let's talk about those different uses of land. All right? The first is for agriculture. Okay? Land provides most of the food that people eat, right? We know that. Crops like wheat, it requires a lot of fertile land. When we say fertile, that means land that you can grow plants on, right? There's land that you can't, that means it's not fertile. Okay? Less than a third of the planet, of the land on Earth, can be farmed. Less than 1/3. Okay? And we can also use land, and we do use land for grazing livestock and growing food for animals or growing crops. Okay? So the rest of the land, it's too dry or too salty or too mountainous. Okay, so we can't grow anything there. So that 1/3 of land is really, really important. Okay, and new farmland is created by clearing forests and draining wetlands and also what we call irrigating deserts. So, irrigating deserts basically means bringing water into a place that doesn't have that water. Okay. It's kind of like the opposite of the wetlands thing, right? The wetlands are too wet to grow stuff, whereas deserts are too dry. So, they take the water out of the wetlands or they add water to the deserts to allow farms. Okay. But obviously, this isn't great for the ecosystems that existed there before, right? And so, as I said in our previous slide on the agriculture uses, okay, it's used for grazing livestock. Okay. We, as Americans, right, not all cultures around the world, but we as Americans typically eat a lot of meat. Okay. So, we have to feed that meat. We also have to grow food for the animals that we eat, right? They have to eat to grow. And so a lot of the times we grow food to feed to the food, which can be a little redundant. And then obviously we use land to grow crops like cotton and corn and wheat. Those are all really, really important crops for us. All right. Another use that we have for the land is mining. And mining is the removal of non-renewable resources from the land. Okay? Hopefully, non-renewable is ringing a bell for you. And basically, what non-renewable means is it cannot be replenished easily. Okay. They're not replaced in a useful amount of time, right? Some of these resources that we mine, they take millions of years to form. So obviously we can't replace them. All right. And then there's a couple of different kinds of mining. The first is called strip mining, like you can see in this image. So basically, resources just below the surface are strip mined. And this basically, it removes a strip of land to get the minerals, and that strip is then replaced. The problem with strip mining is that it exposes soil, which can then be blown and washed away, right? That's not good. And the area that was strip mined could remain barren, which basically means like empty of life for years after the strip mining has occurred, which obviously is not good for the environment in which it occurred. We also have deep mining, right? Underground. So resources, they can be removed from deeper underground by digging tunnels to bring those minerals to the surface. Okay, so there's a lot of deep mining that occurs as well. And the last land use that we're talking about is development. Okay, people develop the land. All right, and it's pretty straightforward. People settled in areas that had good soil and were near fresh water. Populations grew, and then those settlements became towns and cities. People developed the land by constructing buildings, like we see here, building roads and bridges to connect all the land. Okay. In the United States, an area half the size of New Jersey is developed each year. So think of Florida, for example. Yes, all the coasts of Florida are very heavily developed, but in the interior of Florida, there's a lot of wide open spaces. If you haven't driven through Florida, it is the case, right? So half the size of New Jersey, that kind of land is being destroyed. You can see the natural areas being destroyed to put up, buildings and houses and things for people to occupy. They develop it. All right. So thinking back, our three land uses: agriculture, mining, and development. Okay. You should have filled in your notes from this lesson. And it's a pretty short and sweet lesson. Make sure you're filling in those notes. They're going to help you immensely when it comes time for quizzes. Okay, so make sure you're doing those and getting those turned in. If you have any questions, as always, please let me know. And I look forward to the next lesson.